Shooting seamless hyperlapse sequences, connecting shots and making the camera flow around the location is something I fell in love with a few years back. Since then, I'm constantly trying to improve by adding new techniques, new shots, or doing it in new locations. Different time-lapsers have different approach to this idea or call it differently, but probably the most known naming was introduced by Rob Whitworth and his Flow Motion. His Dubai film is probably known worldwide. Another time-lapser who has pretty similar approach is Jeff Tompkinson, who called his variation of this technique a hyperzoom. It's a little different than Rob's. Rob connects static shots with animation added in post with hyperlapse. Jeff also makes it seamless, but mostly using static camera and adding movement in post-production. In this video I'll be analyzing my latest film, which is not entirely seamless, but has a long seamless sequence. My approach to these seamless films is also a little different. I like my camera to move all the time. I use mostly hyperlapse technique. I very rarely use digital movement on static shots or stab the camera. Let's talk about these seamless transitions. I see some confusion about them online. Sometimes people tell me that they don't want to learn shooting from me, just post-production to get these effects. But if you don't know how to shoot it right, you won't be able to connect your shots in post or it will look bad. Shooting and planning is the most important part here. Post-production is just polishing. However, post-production also needs to be done well to get a really good effect. A quick info here. This film is something I tried for the first time and I don't think that has ever been done before, as it's a combination of hyperlapse and FPV racing drone footage in flow motion sequence. It's not 100% hyperlapse, however it doesn't have to be. Transition we'll be talking about here can also be applied to real-time video. The steps would be the same, you'll only have different footage. The first step for shooting a flow motion sequence is to plan your shot. Sometimes it's possible to add the transition entirely in post-production and it will look nice, but it's a lottery. For example, in this sequence only one transition wasn't planned and I figured it out in post, and it's this one. I had a little different idea for that, but in post I figured out that it doesn't work, so I was looking for an alternative. This wasn't even a shot that was planned, I was just getting back from my previous shot and I wanted to record something nice. If you want your whole film to be seamless, planning is essential. Planning things ahead lets you prepare well for the shooting. For the clock transition in this film, I had to buy a watch, remove everything from the inside, print the clock face from the following shot, match the hour in both shots. Of course, as these are both clocks and they're round, I could do the transition keeping the original look of the clock and it would still look okay, but I wanted it to be as seamless as possible. I think clocks are very important in the work of time-lapser and they have to be treated well. To plan your sequence, the main thing is to know the beginning and the ending of each shot, because these are parts that you'll be connecting in post. And you can't do it if you don't know your location. It's best to visit the location before the shoot, but we don't always have that luxury. Sometimes I use Google Maps for planning. It's an awesome tool, but you have to remember that sometimes landscape change in a few months, like when I was shooting Explore Poland video. Instead of clear view of the Ferris wheel, I had a huge building in front of it. In my film Future is Bright, it was fairly easy because it's my hometown, so I know it well. The only problem I had was with the fountains. They didn't work because of the COVID-19 situation, and in my first plan I wanted to use them in 2 shots. I had to adapt to the situation and change the plan. I didn't want to wait a few months without any guarantee that fountains would start working. While shooting, you have to remember about the transitions you want to make. If it helps, you can get the last frame of the previous shot on your phone and try to match the first picture of the following shot with it. Of course, it depends on the transition, as the possibilities are limitless. Take a look at this transition. I knew I want to make a camera move through the wall. To do that, it's important to end as close to the wall as possible. With such close subject, every centimeter of camera movement has a huge impact on the image. I also had to rotate the camera in the right direction to keep it smooth with the following shot. For the second shot here, it was a little easier as I could go under the building because there is a passage underneath it. This helps a little with the transition. As I said, the part in which the camera is close to the wall is the most important. Let's take a look at the first transition in the film. It's a hyperlapse shot followed by the drone shot called the power loop, so like a backflip with your drone. The first thing that has to match in both shots is the camera movement direction, and it's one of the most important things here. If you screw it up, you will need to reshoot it or accept the transition is not very good. Reshooting would be the best way to go here. So in the hyperlapse shot I tilt the camera up, which means in drone shot I have to do the same. I tried such a shot previously in Explore Poland video, but with a regular DJI drone shot, and I needed to add some rotation to make it feel right. Clouds can be a problem for seamless transitions, especially if they move in different directions in each shot. Here I didn't have this problem. I wanted the castle to be shot with completely clear sky to get the morning sun on the building. For the drone shot I just picked the same weather. Of course it is possible with clouds, but could be a little harder with more masking in post. In hyperlapse post-production, the first thing to do is stabilizing the shots. And it's very important to really take your time here. I've seen a lot of sequences with good ideas ruined by poorly stabilized shots. So don't just put a warp stabilizer on everything. If it's not perfectly stable, keep working. Tracker, so that 1 or 2 point stabilizer in After Effects, should be your best friend. When you finish stabilizing, it's time to match the speed of the transition. To keep the transition seamless, we want to avoid jumping from the slower shot to the faster one or from the faster to slower. That means if your shots have different camera movement speed, you have to adjust the slower one to match the faster. So just speed up the slower shot to match it as close as possible to the faster one. If you're matching the hyperlapse with video, as I do in this transition, you'll probably have to speed up the video. For hyperlapses, it's usually easier to match the speed when shooting. Here, the distance you move the tripod between each picture is responsible for the camera movement speed, so you just move, for example, 1 step between each picture for both shots and it will be matched. Using masking usually makes the transition better. In this shot, it's just a simple mask of the sky. Here, a cross dissolve would also work well. For this one, we also could skip masking, especially if the camera movement would be faster, but with some masking it looks way better and smoother. It's just a few frames, but such small things make a difference in the final video. As you see in both examples, 90% here is shooting the transition well, then post-production is fairly simple. Of course, there are transitions that are much harder to do in post, but still without the proper shooting you won't be able to connect them in post. If you want to explore the concept of seamless transitions more and learn it from basics all the way to very advanced transitions, join Hyperlapse Academy, my online time-lapse and hyperlapse school. We've got there over 6 hours of detailed time-lapse and hyperlapse training. I teach you everything I've learned during over 6 years experience as a professional hyperlapser, as well as I analyze my award-winning films frame by frame, explaining how I made them. Click the link below to learn more about the Academy.